Hey there, friends. This is Bill MacDonald, the writing doctor, here to talk to you who are following the videos from the STAR writing guide for expository and persuasive. Yesterday, I read you 11 different prompts, also known as topics, in the expository and persuasive purposes, and gave you some thesis statements and position statements about all 11. So today we're going to focus on an actual prompt page, the way that they look in Texas for secondary students. It even looks this way for elementary if you're still practicing expository. But the thing that I want to make clear is that when you're making a thesis statement, you're not just making a topic statement. They don't just want you to restate the topic. When you're making a position statement, they don't want you just to restate the topic. They actually want you to take a position, to write a thesis, a specific idea that you have about the topic. And in the same way, it's sort of like answering the question. If the state asks those open-ended questions, simply restating the question is not going to help in any way, shape, or form towards getting points in the answering of the question. Let me show you what I mean by using a prompt that I made that could quite possibly be a topic that's given to English 1 students this coming year. Now, it has the read section, a quote about George Washington chopping down a tree and not being able to lie about it, about Honest Abe. We don't know why he was called Honest Abe, but if your kids are going to use the quote as part of their response about the topic being honest, they better actually explain and have enough information about cutting down that tree and the situation behind it and why Abraham Lincoln was called Honest Abe, and some examples of some things that he did that represented his honesty. Then it's better not just to restate this quote. There are many benefits of telling the truth when it hurts. That's the think section. That's not the topic. So your students writing, there are many benefits of telling the truth even when it hurts. That's zero original writing so far. If your students write, it is important to be honest. All they're doing is restating the topic. That's too vague. That's not a thesis statement. What they need to do is take this red light and turn it into a yellow light by clearly stating a thesis, because that's just too vague, with an idea, what would also be known as the answer to the question, to get to what I call one land. So what I've done is try to think of, I believe it's 24 different thesis statements that we can use to get to one land. And whenever it was specific words from the topic, the word important or the word honest, I didn't underline it, but anything that I added that could be interpreted as my idea about the topic, then I went ahead and highlighted it yellow. And so this, for those of you who have it, is page 9 of the STAR Writing Guide. And I'm going to jump to expository for this next week or so, and I'll stick to expository. This is thesis statements using what I call the cause and effect, the cause being honesty or synonyms of honesty, and the effect being what good or bad thing that could happen. Now, as you're going over these with me, what I highly recommend that you do and that your students do is they can actually use these as their thesis statements and then think of personal examples, hypothetical examples, current events, books, movies, magazines, fiction, nonfiction, articles, things that are happening in the news, historical, meaning any people or places or events from the past before their lifetime. Okay, so all of the yellow that you see is something that I added, and there's a few extras here and there, but something that I added that says, here's me addressing the topic, but the yellow portion is here me actually creating a thesis that I'm going to focus and keep everything centered on. Honesty creates trust from friends in life. So my whole essay would have to be focused on the importance of building trust in friendships in life, either your personal life or in the life of show characters, movie characters, people in books, that trust was built, and explain why that being honest creates trust. Telling the truth is an important ninth commandment of the Bible that keeps things fair between people. This is an example of one of the 5 F's that you can use when you're making thesis statements, examples, ideas, and explanations. Factual, when you're using personal experiences that are yours or people that you care about. Or nonfiction, that's real. Fiction means realistic. There's a lot of fiction books that are about things that didn't really happen with people or animals and places, but you could use fiction. Another one is fantasy. There's a lot of books that are fantastical. Uh, for example, Pinocchio's nose cannot really grow when he tells a lie. And he cannot really talk because he's just a puppet on a string. But this F that we're talking about here is the F of faith. Students are allowed to use their faith to express their ideas and their points of view. The only other one that I haven't mentioned is figurative language is completely appropriate as long as they're tying it to their idea and they think of it as sauce or spice adding to the meat of what you're writing about. Number 3, being open and honest topic is the best quality a friend could ask for in a relationship. So now we're zooming in past just friends, but relationships. So that can be between a boy and a girl, a man and a woman, a mother and a father, any relation. It could even be a business relationship if you're feeling that you can emphasize that people in business relationships can also be friends. Life without honesty, without it, what happens, how important it is, would be a terrible, lonely place. If that's my idea, then my next part to get a 2, I just have to tell you why and give some examples, 1 or 2, of why I would feel a world without honesty would be a terrible, lonely place, and then explain the negative impact of dishonesty in the world, in my world or yours. Speaking the truth, honesty, in love, important in the way you do it, opens the door to help others improve their character. Okay. Am I talking about honesty? Yes. I don't need to restate the topic, the prompt, in order to respond to it. And that's why I feel that you don't have to restate the exact words of the question. You can rephrase and you can reflect and think about higher level ways of responding to any topic, any question, any prompt. So this is a very interesting one. Opening a door, that's a figurative expression. Nobody really feels that a literal door is going to be opened. But if you're going to say things to people in love, then give me an example of something, a book where somebody spoke the truth to love and to someone, and it improved their character, and explain that and explode that to get higher vocabulary and voice to have a good chance of turning a 3 into a 4. Being too honest, going the opposite direction, can hurt feelings and separate the best of friends. So since you have two ideas here, you're going to have to make sure that you discuss how, number one, body paragraph, feelings do get hurt, and as a result, it separates. So if this is the shirt, then you want a belt that connects the cause and effect relationship of when you're too honest and say things that hurt people's feelings, it can end friendships. And you'd have to tell me why you feel that happens. And then, of course, explain yourself with a personal, hypothetical, current event, or historical example. And so when you're trying to pick the ones you want to use, the one you want to use, remember the one that you can explain the most, the one that you can relate to the most is the one that you should use as your own personal idea. Okay. Speaking all love to someone with no truth prevents him from becoming all he can be in love. So this one says speaking the truth in love. This one's speaking all love with no truth. So just being nice to people all the time, but not really telling them the truth, it's going to hurt the person in the long run and keep them from being the best person that they can be. And there's lots of examples in life that you can use. And I'll be showing you on my next video how to turn 2 or 3 of these thesis statements into 2 with a reason and an example. That way we have 3 sentences that complete the first and the second bullets, the thesis statement and the organization, meaning I need reasons and I need examples of what you mean by your idea about the topic. Being honest about how you feel about something, how you feel about something is crucial if you want real change, even if you have to risk your life to do it. So putting things out there verbally, on social media, in the news, in writing, is crucial according to my thesis statement, even to the point of risking your life. So if you're going to say that, the example that you have to have as part of your explanation is someone who did that, who was willing to risk his or her life to get the truth, or at least what he or she thought was the truth about something, in terms of getting rejected or getting what we call nowadays canceled. Being truthful in every circumstance puts, I gotta change that, you at risk of having people walk all over your heart. Okay. So in relationships, for example, if you tell a person that you're looking forward to possibly having a potential relationship, everything right out front, that's a little scary. Sometimes it's called TMI, too much information. And so you're opening another door for them to walk all over your heart and trample it and kind of tell everybody everything that you're sharing. And sometimes that causes a lot of pain. And so you would just have to explain why you wouldn't want to do that. Telling people what they need to hear is imperative compared to telling them what they want to hear. So being honest in this case is saying what people need to hear, either in writing, over the phone, through messenger, whatever social media, or right there in person, face to face. And you might talk about the importance of uh, speaking the truth through some sort of technology, or versus the telling the truth, things that people need to hear in person, because if it's that critical, sometimes people don't want to hear life-changing information through a text or a voicemail that they happen to get because they didn't answer. Sometimes there is wisdom in silence if being honest will ruin someone's life forever. You don't always, and I'm having to learn this with my own children, my wife, you don't always have to say everything that pops into your head. You don't want to ruin someone's life just because you feel like you have to spill your guts on everything. The truth is the truth, but the truth hurts, and you've got to decide when it's more important to be quiet and say nothing if you feel that someone's life could be ruined, your own or another person's, in doing so. And then again, before you decide this is going to be your thesis statement, you've got to think, is there a real life or hypothetical situation that I can use as an example that I could explain? Page 12. Honesty is the best policy regardless of what it costs. So that's a quote. So I'm using a quote to make a thesis statement, regardless of what it costs, no matter what, that it's the best policy. So there's a risk here of saying this because sometimes it could cost money, it could cost friendship, it could cost life. And so you're going to have to be able to explain an example of how, regardless of whatever happens, being honest is always the best policy, the best situation, the best scenario, the best what can I say? The best way of doing things as a company, as a school, as a corporation, a friendship, a group, a committee. There is no character trait more vital than integrity when it comes to leadership. Okay. So instead of using the word honesty, we rephrase and use integrity, calling it a character trait, and that it's vital for leadership. So I'd have to connect the ideas of leadership being a character trait, that integrity, that that character trait of integrity that leaders need to have in order to be effective, or else don't use that thesis. Being honest is making a commitment to do something and following through no matter how bad things get later. So being honest is saying, yes, I will do this, or yes, I will say that. You make a commitment to do something, sort of like in marriage. I make a vow to love, honor, and cherish, for better, for worse, for richer or poorer, until death do us part. Now, that's an example of a commitment and following through. Half the marriages end in divorce, and so you're going to have to, if you choose that as your thesis and use marriage as an example, then you can say you're going to have to explain why it's better to go ahead and stick it out, even if things get really bad in the marriage later on. It's absolutely imperative to have a friend who will keep you accountable and transparent at all times. In other words, we all need a friend who's going to uh, make us be honest, and be open. Transparent is another word for open. So the twist on honesty here is openness and accountability. in terms of if we're struggling with something or someone, then we have somebody that we have to be willing to admit when we're struggling. Lying is acceptable, opinion, when you feel someone's life or safety is in danger. Okay. So if somebody tells you something that they're going to do that can hurt them, a community, the world, um, nature, then you might tell them to their face that you won't say anything just to accommodate and appease that person. But then as soon as you get away from there, you probably need to use an example where you can save lives or the safety of others by saying one thing but doing another. It is better to keep your mouth shut if the truth will cause devastation or destruction in any way. So the truth here sounds very negative. And so you're going to have to think of a situation, an example that you could explain, but that means by speaking out that mass destruction and devastation of relationships, of a business, church, a school, think like bigger, county, a city, a country. Got a lot going on in the world these days. No one wants to be around people who can't be real and truthful with them. That's hyperbole. That no one person in the world wants to be around people who can't be real. And that's my thesis. And so the feeling of despising or hating to be in the physical presence of people who can't be real, and you'd have to explain why you feel that no one would want to be around people like that, and use an example that you can explain to support it. Honesty takes courage, opinion, but it's worth it in the end. Okay. Simple. It's going to take courage, something that you need to be able to produce honesty, but it's worth it. I want to know why, and I would like an example. Integrity is doing the right thing even though no one is watching. My dad made a sign that he put while I was working for him, and it pretty much said that integrity is doing the right thing even when no one else is watching, because sometimes our honesty and our integrity go out the window when we're completely by ourselves alone. The real person that we are is the person that no one sees, the one that we know that we can get away with when we're all by ourselves in a place where no one knows us. But integrity does what's right, even when the only person seeing you is the mirror or God. In a spirit of fair competition, being honest is playing by the rules, even if it means losing in sports or in life. So, because you talked about playing by the rules, you could either zoom in on just sports or just life. If you play sports, then you could say, I'm going to eliminate the idea about life, because if you mention playing by the rules in sports or in life, that means in the body, you're going to talk about what happens if we don't play by the rules in sports. And you also have to talk about what happens when we don't play by the rules in life. You'll have to give some examples of people who don't play by the cultural rules. And that's what makes it harder, You know, those of you that are trying to do dual thesis statements, I put some in there for your benefit, but you have to remember that you've got to talk about both of those things, and you also have to connect them together. If I can't connect sports and life to each other, but just connect them to the topic, that's what they call like a 2-3 paper, and it really doesn't have a chance to get a 3 or a 4 unless you somehow meaningfully connect the ideas. 3 more and then we're done. The world needs more people who will give their word on something and have the commitment to keep their word in spite of how bad life gets. So it's similar to something that I've already said before. Just give your word with your mouth or in writing, and then commit to it. So if you get a loan, if you get a credit card, you are giving your word, you're making a commitment that you're going to make payments on that loan, on that credit card, no matter what, in spite of how bad the economy gets. So we're in a post or current COVID world where lots of incomes have changed. A lot of us can't pay our taxes, our income taxes. We can't pay our property taxes. We can't even afford our property. Our mortgage payment that we signed a note. We are having trouble keeping up with our credit cards. Some of us can't even put gas in our gas tanks, let alone pay the payment for the car. For some of us, the amount of gas that you're spending is each month is higher than your car payment if you have a big enough vehicle and you have to do a lot of driving. So you're really going to have to hone in on that and talk about the importance of whenever you give your word on things, when you say or write that you're going to do something, you've got to tell me why you feel that. It is important to make that commitment and stick to it, no matter how bad life gets, like such as the examples I gave. 2 more and we're done. The truth hurts, but hey, no pain, no gain. A simple and quite overused statement. People are going to say things that hurt us. They're going to write things about us or tell other people things about us behind our back that will hurt. Being honest helps us grow in life. So even though our present might seem a little dark, we can talk about how the future, that even when someone says something hurtful about us that is true, that it can help us grow if we really listen to what the person is saying and maybe apply a different approach to the thing that the person was saying that we were doing was wrong. It's called character. Lying habitually, in other words, all the time, builds walls between yourself and other people. So there's no literal wall that's being built, but habitually. So what you can say is sometimes there's these little white lies or little things, but if you're constantly saying white lies, constantly crossing over between black and white and not really saying the truth about what you feel about things and people and situations, including politics and religion, which can be a little bit touchy. The students are allowed to use any examples under the sun that they want that are factual, fiction, real or non, hypothetical, fantasy, faith, figurative language, current event, historical event, uh, Any way to explain the idea is acceptable, even a little story in the form of an anecdote, a little mini story of something that happened to you or someone that you know, if that anecdote is supporting a reason why, and you saying that it's an example, and then it's a little mini story. Now some people say get in and get out. Well, if you don't develop, you don't want to have one or two sentences about a reason or example. Let me say this very clearly. Too many of you are telling high school students and middle school students, oh, for each reason or each example, just have one or two sentences. What you're saying is, if you want to get a one or a two, just put one or two sentences. The older the student in age and grade, the more sentences that you would want him or her to spend on the development of that reason. Now, my body, upper and lower, is separated by a belt. So if you're going to give two reasons or two examples, tell your students that their body, upper and lower, is bigger than their head, their introduction, and their ankles and feet for a reason. The ending is the shoes, the laces that tie everything together. So you would want maybe two or three sentences to end the essay, two or three sentences to start the essay. You could have a hook or attention getter before these thesis statements. But please, when you're talking to the students about development, it is absolutely incorrect if your program or curriculum is saying just to have one or two sentences to support a reason. It does not say that. Develop your ideas in detail. It says specific supporting sentences. So what they're saying is, like my folder does, GPS, get pretty specific. The longer you can stay on that reason or example, the higher the score is going to be. Telling your students to only have one or two sentences for a reason or example is a formula for lack of development called a list, or a vague statement. And you don't want to get ones and twos, you want to get threes and fours, and you'll never find a three or a four that just has a couple of sentences supporting a reason or an example. So based on these 24, I might have taken all day, all 6 or 7 or 8 periods, however many that I have, if I'm a high school teacher, coming up with these with my students and kind of tweaking and adding to them so that the students could have all of these different thesis statements based on one topic, the keywords of importance and honesty. And as you saw, I hardly ever use the word honesty, but every single one of these thesis statements directly responds to the topic of honesty and talking about how you either should be honest or that you shouldn't be. And they all tended to have some sort of positive or negative effect of honesty as part of the thesis statement. So hopefully this kind of helps open your eyes to all of the different avenues that are available to your students. That's why it does say on the next to the last bullet in expository and persuasive, choose your words carefully. Let's see. Choose your words carefully. 4 words, and they're basically saying If you want to turn your 3 into a 4, use, I'm going to take the word and separate it into two V's like I've done many times. They're saying use higher vocabulary, or take off the higher vocabulary. Instead of telling me with higher vocabulary, show me by what you might say or by what you might do or what you're thinking, what you're hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. That's your voice, who you are inside your head, your thoughts, your opinions, your senses, and what you might say, and your heart, your feelings and your emotions, the way that your body would move in terms of the way you act or react to any emotional situation. So it's a lot of information for today's video, but I hope that it's helpful. May the ones and twos be with you as you come up with some other strong thesis statements to add to the ones that I've already given you for this topic of honesty. And on my next video, I'm going to pick 2 or 3 of these. Well, I'll pick one. Actually, I'll pick 4, and I will only give enough information to show you how to take the thesis statement that we started with and just have a reason why and an example that can give the structure that would give your students a 2 and a 2 from 2 different readers, which would add up to a 4, doubled to an 8. Because I feel like if every single student has a thesis statement, reasons, and examples that are an idea about the topic, a reason why, and examples, 1 or 2, then what's going to happen is they're following the first portion of the 2 bullets, the first 2 bullets, which say clearly state your thesis, organize your essay. Organization and expository and persuasive is giving reasons and examples for what you mean. So good luck. Thanks for staying tuned for this whole video. Have a blessed day. Hope you're enjoying your spring break. That's when I'm recording this, during your spring break. Hopefully you're relaxing while you're watching this video. You take care.